Does your kid's bedroom closet look like a giant black hole dumping ground? My son's builder grade closet just doesn't cut the mustard. And in this video, I'm going to do something about it. Follow along as I convert this underused locker into a sleek and seamless built-in with maximum storage and a functional workspace. And I'm going to show you how I did it for under $600. This is the second video in a series I'm doing in my son's room. In the first video, I built him a kind of Star Wars themed floating bed, along with some cool light panels and a Death Star shelf. I did this built-in dresser a few years ago, but the drawers are undersized and this is a very inefficient use of space. The main problem with these builder grade closets is there's a ton of wasted space in the corners. It would be fine if he had a lot of hanging clothes, but he doesn't. I went over to Pinterest for some design ideas. I really want form and function. I really like this two-tone look. I couldn't really find a closet or a desk built in, but I did find this kitchen, and this is pretty much what I was going for. I came up with this rough sketch of what I wanted. I plugged it into Gemini, and it gave me this pretty accurate image. This AI stuff's pretty cool, man. All right, let's turn this render into a reality. I have about 28 inches from the wall that I can work with. And it's about 6-7 feet across. And I'm only making this thing 24 inches deep to save on plywood. So I think what I'm gonna do here, build this thing in 3 separate zones. So I'll have one cabinet, the desk area with cabinet above it, and then this will be another cabinet over here. 3 separate units that I kind of attach, and then I'll have to trim around them somehow to make them feel like they're built into the wall. With a laser level and some painter's tape, I gave myself a straight line that I could use a utility knife to cut the drywall. In my experience, this is the least dusty way to do this. All right, now for the fun part. Tearing out perfectly good construction is scary, but the vision of what it can become is what keeps you moving forward. Glue that back on. All right, I got a clean slate. Let's get to it. Now to address this outlet, I'll be moving it to the other side of the wall, and then I'll be tapping into this line so that I can add some lights to the wall unit. Did I mention I hate doing drywall? I'll go back and add texture and paint the ceiling afterwards. This little spotlight will help brighten up his desk. All right, let's build my son the closet of my dreams. I like to use these cut list optimizers. This helps me plan the project a little bit better and get my ideas straight, keeping the project on a budget with the most efficient use of lumber. I wanted to use pre-finished plywood on this one, but it's just not available anywhere near me, fortunately. I've never done this before, but I'm going to attempt to cut 2 pieces of plywood in one shot. New pencil, who dis? 24 inches was the theme on this project, as you'll see. And no, unfortunately, I can't cut 2 pieces. It got super wonky on me. I may have went too fast, and I think my saw blade is starting to get a little dull. My 2 main cabinets are 24 inches wide by 24 inches deep. This allowed me to maximize my plywood use and keep the total cost around $200 for all the carcasses or carcasses or whatever. So this is the part of woodworking that's always been kind of a struggle for me. Just breaking down my sheet goods and trying to do it in a way where everything is perfectly square so that I don't run into problems later on when I'm building my doors, drawers, things like that. I bought these nifty little corner clamps. They don't really have any grip strength, but they're good as like a third hand. I don't overthink these cabinet boxes. I had some scrap 2x4s, so I'll be using those as just extra structural support. I'm adding a shelf to the middle of the cabinet, and this is what's going to separate the drawers from the top of the cabinet. A piece of blocking ensures that your shelf is exactly where you want it to be. No measuring involved. All right, so for this project, I'll be building a face frame out of this 1.5 inch select pine. And then I'll be doing like overlay doors as opposed to, if you watched the last video in our master bedroom where I used no face frames, I just used the cabinets and edge banded them. And then I did the doors that were inset. So for this one, I kind of test myself and try something different. Overlay doors where the door sits on top of the face frame. I like to pre-build my face frames and then glue them onto the boxes. I'll lay the pieces out first to make sure everything's exactly the way I want it before I glue it together. I fill all my nail holes and give it a final sand. Alright, let's build some drawers. I've got a bunch of 3/4 inch plywood that's just sitting around the shop. I'll be using that to make my drawer boxes. These have been my go-to drawer slides just because they're super inexpensive. So this is the part of the build where you stop. Make sure your brackets fit before you make all your cuts. And as you can see, I'm off. I'm too big. So if I would have went and made all those cuts. So cutting all the drawer box parts is kind of tedious work. It is nice having this kind of setup where I can just set my stop and just cut, and just cut, There you go. That's how you want to be, not too snug. If you put too much pressure on these drawer slides, they just don't work very well. So you gotta give them a little bit of room to breathe. I like to sand all the parts before I put them together, and I'll have the good side facing inwards. I then give it a healthy coat of linseed oil. Time to sand, 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 sand. Testing 1, 2. So now another tedious part is each drawer box gets 12 pocket holes. So for my drawer bottoms, sometimes I'll just glue a piece of 1/4 inch material or something right to the bottom and then screw it on. For this one, I will be creating a groove to slide the panels into because I'm using this really thin Yucca board material. In the past, I've used my table saw to cut the groove. That requires a little bit of finesse because you have to adjust your saw a little bit every time and try to get the right groove. Last Black Friday, I bought a router table. I'll be using that this time. So a few of these had some really bad tear out. For you guys that actually know what you're doing, leave a comment, let me know what I'm doing wrong here. All right, moment of truth. Oh, that's so satisfying. Oops, wrong one. Scratch that. It's getting sticky in here. Damn it. The struggle is real here.
I wish I had more hands.
There you have it. I added a drawer divider to one of the boxes and routed out some of the face frame for my drawer slides. So when it comes to just woodworking projects like this in general, I don't think you necessarily get better at it the more you do it. I think what it is you tend to take your time more, make sure things are lined up correctly, square, things like that. I can remember being like, an eighth of an inch, what's that? You know, no big deal. But the more you do this stuff, you realize it does make a big deal in the final product. So you take your time, you make that cut the way it's supposed to be made, and you'll end up with a better looking product. It's important to take a step back and just think about your order of operations. The worst thing you can do is rip something out after you've already installed it. Ask me how I know. I'm using 2x4s for my toe kicks, and these will be getting trim at the end. The back of the top section of this cabin is just getting a scrap piece of 1/4 inch plywood that I had. And I screwed the cabinet to the studs. This gave me a nice seamless transition between the old drywall and the new face frame. My son's main request on this build was that he had a large desk. He wants an area to do his homework and to build his Legos. My initial thought was to do a butcher block, but those are kind of cost prohibitive. What I found was a laminated butcher block that Home Depot has for about $130, and this is perfect. And honestly, it's impossible to tell the difference. And because of the 50-inch width on this thing, I did have to notch out the face frame. So this is the cabinet that's going to be on the left-hand side. It's going to be sitting on top of the desk. This one is just going to get some 3/4-inch pieces as braces along the back. And then I'm going to attach the rest of the Yucca board that I used for the drawer bottoms straight to the back. And that way I'm not wasting any material. I intentionally made this cabinet on the left 66 inches. And that leaves the option for longer garments like dresses, things like that. I'm just trying to keep the next person that buys this house in mind. These pocket holes will attach the cabinet to the butcher block. I built the fourth and final cabinet. This one goes in between the two upper cabinets. I'm sanding all the insides of my cabinets, and then at the end I'll go back and do a coat of polyacrylic. Like a glove. And this cabinet doesn't get a backer because it's going to be flush against the wall. These 2x4s will lock both cabinets together and basically make this thing one giant piece. They'll also make up the false wall behind the desk. Santa came early this year. A little Black Friday action. If you know, you know. No more lugging around my air compressor. I think what I love most about these DeWalt tools is there's never any instructions in the box. It's like, here's your tool, good luck. Shh, don't tell my wife, okay? This video is not sponsored by DeWalt, by the way. All right, let's get this. All you Sparkies, close your eyes for this part. I had some leftover shiplap paneling from our bedroom build, and this is what I'll be using for behind the desk. I ripped down a bunch of 3/4-inch strips of Yucca board, and this is what I'm going to be using for little trim pieces everywhere. So one thing I'm not used to with this thing is the heft of it. It's pretty bulky. I'm used to getting into tight little spots with my little guns, but it's for the convenience. I put in a dimmer switch and an outlet. I had an extra slide, so I built this little hidden drawer. A perfect spot for my son to hide things from his little brother. I know I use this Yucca hardboard a lot, but it's such versatile stuff and it's super inexpensive. Since nothing in the room is square, straight, level, I'm kind of going in and just kind of piecing together all of the trim work. And then I'll go back, caulk it all in and make it all look like one piece. This is going to go up to the top. I added these same little slivers of hardboard to the top to hide the gaps in the ceiling. And of course, caulk and paint gonna make me what I ain't. And a coat of primer and a light sand. This is probably the least glorious part of the whole build, but in my opinion has the greatest effect on the final finish. All right, let's build some doors. I'm trying some new hinges this time. This was a box of 10 for like 20 bucks, so we'll see how it goes. The math on building doors like this is a little bit of a brain tease. You really got to take your time and make sure you get your calculations right. So with each of these builds, I'm always trying to push myself a little bit, you know, learning a new technique or trying a new tool. For this project, I picked up a new set of router bits. I've built doors a bunch of different ways, mostly using just 1/4-inch material. For this one, I'll actually be using 1/2-inch material as the backer board to create like a sturdier, less flimsy door. I need something that can stand up to the daily abuse of my son. Anyway, let's dive in, let's do this thing. The first order of business is to cut all my rails and stiles to size. Having a dedicated miter station with a stop lock makes this whole process a breeze. Setting up the router table is a little bit of a pain in the butt, but once you get it dialed in, it's super satisfying to see all these tenons. And then the rails get a mortise, or is it the stiles? I don't know. I'm still figuring out all this lingo. These router bits give the doors a slight bevel on the inside edge, and there's something about that just makes it look super high end. I gave every corner a small round over just to knock off that hard edge. You guys have been telling me to use MDF for my doors, and I'm glad I finally tried it. This stuff is so easy to paint, and the doors just feel so much more solid. This dark color is Urban Bronze by Sherwin-Williams. And if I ever have to paint doors a dark color like this again, I'll definitely be spraying them, because these dark colors are super unforgiving when it comes to rolling them on. So I've been wanting to try this for a while. I bought some red oak, and I'm going to attempt to do my own edge banding, solid oak edge banding. And I have no idea what I'm doing, so we'll be learning this together today. Let's do this. So the oak doors were actually pretty easy to build. All I had to do was cut them down to size. I'm not 100% sold on this solid edge banding. The thin stuff just looks more like a solid piece of wood. It's definitely more durable this way. I don't know. You guys be the judge. Let me know. So that took longer and used a lot more wood than I thought it would. Wasn't that bad, really. I didn't do any measurements, I just marked my cuts as I went. Red oak doesn't get a whole lot of love these days. It's got a real earthy tone, and I feel like it goes good with the dark gray. And I'm gonna give it a dark walnut stain. I think there's a bit of nostalgia too, as an 80s kid. You can associate the 80s with red oak. Don't sleep on red oak, guys. I had a leftover piece of scrap from our bed build, so I'll be using that to build a floating shelf. This is a quick montage, but if you're interested in seeing more of this kind of build, check out that bed video. I had a time trying to get this floating shelf on. I should have planned better on this one. I have to repaint that. I attached a dowel with pocket screws, and then a couple shelves out of leftover plywood. All right, one last thing, and let's wrap this thing up. I bought one of these Govee rope lights. I like it because it gives off a nice warm tone. It goes good with the wood and the gray. And also, because I like to move it.
People.
All right, let's reveal this thing.